Hello my friends, John LaRuffa here today, and on today's rule speed through we are going to go through as quick as I can how to play on Mars. Okay, this guy is complex, it's a bit hefty, and I want to make this video so that if you're looking to play this game, you can do so without having to spend a very long time trying to figure out how to do it. So I'm going to take you through how to play a two-player game with the LaRuffa bot or the AI or however you want to put it. All right, let's get going. Okay, so let's take a look at the board and what we have set up here. There's a lot going on in this game, and the setup is kind of lengthy, so I skipped it because I know you can follow it in the rules. That's the better way to do it. It takes you step by step exactly what to do. But I want to just point out a few things. Number one, your player board over here. As you remember, you start with one resource of each type, one crystal, and then everything's set up. Your only tech tile is your shelter tile, which starts on level 2. And you begin with 3 of these guys to begin with, not 4, but 3. All right, and then you also have your rover and your robot, which we'll talk about in a little bit about what those do. You also will begin with 3 or 4 private goals, depending on if you're playing this small little deluxe expansion that gives you these guys. And if you remember, you can only complete one of these throughout the game. Once you do it, you get whatever it says. Okay, so basically when you have this condition times 3, you get this, okay? And then you flip it over, the other one's over, and you can use those for a random crystal anytime you need it. So that's kind of important. Don't do all of them, just one of those. But you don't have to make up your mind in the beginning. All right, the AI does not have any of that. He does not have anything with regards to workers or resources. He begins the rest of it just like this. And his little robot here will start on this spot, which will indicate where he's going to build first. He basically will try to build in this location first and then continue to move on depending on what is going on in the game. You also start with your different scientists out there. You're going to take 2 of the different decks. You might have extra ones if you have the expansion, but there's definitely 2 at least in the box to put down there for the private Earth contracts later. And then you are going to start off on a random space yourself and have the AI start in a random space by choosing one of these tiles to figure out where he's going to go. You always put the shuttle on the same side that the AI is to start. And so I've just kind of began the game like that. All right, so that is what you're looking at. And over here, of course, you've got your advanced building upgrade cards, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Okay, and finally, for the 2-player, you're going to have just 2 resources on this track, not 3. You're also never going to refill this technology tile track at all. That's what we've got throughout the game. That's all we're going to have. Okay, so let's figure out what's going to happen on our turns. So I think the best way to understand this game is literally to play it from these turn aids and follow them in detail about how the different actions work. So I'm going to show you those, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we're going to go through how the shuttle moves, and then we'll talk about how other things happen, like this, the LLS or LSS upgrades, what happens during that time. And when we do all that, we'll explain everything, and then we'll get to how the AI takes their turn. Okay, so first and foremost, what do you have up here? You have these bonus spaces, and when you move, you're going to be taking one of the bonuses depending on where you land. After that, we're going to start our actual player phase. Okay, and then during this phase, it's the different actions you can do depend on which side you are on this board. So my person is over here, which means I can only take the colony actions over there. Once I'm in orbit, I can take the orbit actions. Okay, so let's talk about what the actions do one at a time here. So a couple things to note. This action space here and this action space here and the action space over here show different kinds of icons and things, okay? So let's talk about this. When you go to take an action, you're going to look at what's in here to determine how you actually do it. If they show a guy over here in red, that means you have to put one of your little workers on this spot. In a 2-player game, before you place the worker, you have to play 1 crystal, or you have to take one of your workers in the shelter and put it in the workshop for each worker that's already present, yours or the opponent, okay? If this spot is filled up, all right? Let's say it's filled up just like that with one more person in there. first you will remove the workers that are in the majority, then you will pay for the spot, however you're going to beforehand, workers or crystals, okay? So that's how it works. And if it's all tied, then you remove all of them. Tied meaning it's all one color in a two-player, and then make your move that way, okay? So that only is required when you have a spot over here. So an action up here, or this action over here, they show X's because you don't actually have to put workers up there. However, this spot right down here means that you can enhance the action by adding additional workers to your spot down here, or paying crystals, again, which you'd have in storage. You start the game with 1 in storage, to take the action over and over again. So that's kind of nice that you can take an additional action with that same exact action by enhancing it, okay? So that's how that works. Over on the other side, you see a little variant of that, okay? Here you see crystals. In this case, you can only spend crystals. You can't spend workers, so if you want to enhance this action, you need to spend crystals to do it. Back here is another worker, so that's very similar, okay? So in that space, that's the only one that only lets you spend crystals. Everything else is worker or crystals, or no enhancement at all. Like, you can't enhance this action. So what do the different actions do? First and foremost, if you want, you can take this action to remove your guy from over one of these spaces over across here and pick a spot, take the bonus. When you do that, you pass your turn, you're done. That's it. And you don't get to place one of these 2 bonus tiles. However, you do get to do this situation right here, which is basically how you retrieve your workers, which I'll tell you about when we get to that spot. So that's this action. Kind of helpful, maybe near the end of the game, not so much in the beginning. Over here, this is how you take these different upgrade cards. So when you go ahead and activate this action, you can take it 1 or more times, depending if you're going to enhance it. You will choose any one of these upgrade cards over here. It doesn't matter which one. You will always get whatever is shown here. See, this lightning bolt says instantly get a crystal. You'll get that. You'll put it into your reserve, okay, or your storage, pardon me. If you don't have a spot to store it, then you can't store it. So you're at the beginning of the game, you are limited to 3 crystals for storage, and 1 plus the number of shelters you have on the board out here for your storage in your own personal place where you keep these other things. Okay, so in this case, I would immediately get a crystal. I'm going to put this card down here, and then I'm going to put one of these little upgrade buildings right on the card, showing that I have not built it yet. Okay, at the end of the game, if I do build it, I will get 3 points. If I don't build it, I will lose 3 points. So I have to decide if I'm going to take a card, I better try to do it. If I don't, I'm in trouble. Now, we'll talk about how to build those in just a minute, but that's what this action does. And also, it's a great way to get these, extra resources when you take that action over there. If I want to choose this action, I will choose any one of these tiles. Okay, these are my advanced tech tiles. And I will either pay nothing, I will pay a battery, or I'll pay a battery and something else to take one of these tiles and place it out here on the first level of my technology track. Whenever I cover one of these icons, I will immediately take whatever the bonus is. So in this case, it's a bonus crystal. Here it's take 1 material from the warehouse or a crystal. Up here, you would get a bonus mineral. Here, you're going to be able to move your bot, but you do have to pay. You don't have to pay to move it. You move for free for 2, or you can enhance it by adding crystals to go further. Over here, you get to take the action of actually upgrading a building, and you can pay extra workers to upgrade it more, which we'll talk about that later. And then here, taking cards like we just did and paying, again, workers to do it in upgraded fashion. So you're going to take one of these tiles, whichever it is, you pay for it, you put it out here, and there you go. That's what you do on this turn. And again, you can enhance it, so you could do it multiple times. This action right here allows you to actually move some of these pieces. So let's say I had 2 pieces right here like this and this, okay? I can pick 1 piece to move once and then move the same piece again, or I can pick 1 piece and then move it once and then pick another piece and move it once. The key is that you have to pay this resource on the spot you go to. So for instance, if I want to move this green one, I can move him by paying any one of these materials. And remember, the mineral is wild, but I can pay any of those back to the personal supply or the general supply to be able to move that. And when I move it, again, if I was to move it again and cover one of these spaces right here, I would then go ahead and get that upgrade or that bonus. But every time I move it, I must pay whatever it says up here, okay? And you get to do that twice over here. If you want to go ahead and enhance it, you would then take it and do it again twice. So that's how that works. And finally, if I want to resupply from the warehouse, I would put no guys out here. I would just basically take one of these, any one that I want that's available, and I could take multiple by enhancing the action as usual. And again, I can only take if I can store. So those are the different orbital actions I can take. I can go ahead and take the landing pods. I can obtain blueprints. I can learn new techs. I can R&D, and I can go and restock from the warehouse, resupply, okay? When I want to take any of the actions where I'm on the colony, I need to be on this side like my guy is right here. Before, remember, I would have had my guy in one of these spots over here. If I'm over here, I can take any of the colony actions, okay? So the first colony action I could do is to actually build something. Just like I talked about before, you have to put one of your workers over here, and you have to pay whatever the costs are depending on how many workers are already there in crystals or by putting additional workers in your workshop. You are going to then take one of these tiles, whichever one you want to build, okay? Pay the resources. In the case of building a mine, you don't pay a resource. You have to put one person from your living quarters on that mine. They can't be in the workshop. They got to be in the living quarters. And then you're going to place them on the board. Now, here's the way it works. This is your builder, okay? Here's your person. He is going to be the only, this is basically shows you the radius you can build. You can build on the tile that he's sitting on or one tile around it, okay? If you move your bot, and you will, throughout the game, you can move him around to be able to increase your building radius. When you build, you have two options. Number one, you're gonna choose and pay for one of these things, okay? So let's say I did this, I wanna build a, water purifier or a water evaporator. I need to pay a battery to do it. I have a battery, so I can go ahead and pay that. All right, now I have a choice. I can either put it right next to the existing water evaporator if I have the tech tile, or I have to put it exactly 2 spaces away from the water evaporator. Now, if my bot's over here, I better have the tech tile, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to put this down because 2 spaces away is someplace out here, okay? So I look over here, I don't have the tech tile. So I would have had to previously at least research that tech tile and hit it on level 1 so that I could do +1 from what I'm doing, when I'm putting it down. So the way that works is that you look where you're about to build. Whatever existing amount of structures are there, that is the level you have to have here. So in this case, I have 1 existing structure. I have to have a tech tile on level 1 right there. If I do, I can go ahead and place this down. Once I place it down, I will get 1 resource for each building that represents my new complex. So in this case, I would go ahead and I would take 2 water, okay, from the supply. I put it down here. Now, I'm only able to store 2 because I only have 1 shelter out there, so I'd have to lose 1. But that's how that works. Now, here's the thing. After I do all that, let's say, or pardon me, before I do all that, let's say I don't have this tile right here. Let's say the AI does. If the AI has it, I can still use his tile, okay? But in this case, I would have to give him a crystal. If the AI needs to use my tile, I would get the normal way of using the bonus, which is I get a free oxygen, okay? The oxygen's placed here. After that person is done doing whatever they're doing, let's say this is a little bit reversed and he was going to do the building of the water tile, I would have a choice. Do I want to spend this oxygen to upgrade the tile that he used for free? Or do I, not really for free, you spend the oxygen, or do I want to not upgrade it and just keep the oxygen and put it in my supply? So there's a little bit of interaction there that you can use the other person's tech tiles and the AI will always use yours and you will get a benefit for them doing so in the form of oxygen. If you use his, you will give him a crystal. All right, so that is probably the most difficult of the actions that you're going to take is placing things down on the board, okay, because it's got complex rules and everything else. Again, follow the steps here. It's going to be the way you want to do it. And when I mean follow the steps here, I really mean follow the steps here. Okay, so that's what you want to do when you're going to place a building on this game. Then finally, after you've built the building, see if that building is not yet up to the level that the LSS is. If it is not, you immediately take the 2 points in the case of the first one, slide it up, take the marker that corresponds to the building, place it there, okay? And then you will get whatever the bonus is over here. And these are random every game, so you're gonna have to look up what they are, okay? So that is how that works from a situation of what you wanna do. Also, you not only just do this, but you also get an opportunity to take these bonuses right there. Now, one thing I have to mention about building, let's say you decide to build a building that has these crystals shown on it. Before you place the building, you're going to look at the orientation. Okay, remember these always have to orient with that little spot facing upwards. You're going to place it down, and wherever it points to spots that are empty, you're going to put one of these crystals from the supply over here, which you can later pick up. Then you're going to flip this over. Okay, so that happens when you have a specific tile that has those crystals shown right here. If it's blank, that does not happen. Okay, so that's another thing. A lot of little things in this game that you got to keep track of. Okay, the next action from the colonized standpoint is placing an upgraded building. So you have had to previously have a card, like we talked about earlier, to do this. In order to do it, you have to have access to one mineral, which I do here. You pay that mineral, you take the building, and you place it on whatever building corresponds, in this case it's a shelter, to the upgrade. You are only allowed to upgrade your own shelters. However, besides the shelters, any other building that's on the board is upgradable by you or somebody else. So that means that buildings aren't really owned by people, okay? Upgrades are, and when you do that, you will then get the opportunity to score 3 points at the end of the game. Plus, you'll always have access to this executive action, which we will talk about when we talk about executive actions in just a little bit. And so that is how the upgrade action over here works. Again, you have to pay all the usual fees and everything else. In this case, that upgrade action cannot be enhanced. It cannot be done more than one time. You can just do one on your turn. However, if you remember this bonus, this one lets you do that action as many times as you want as long as you pay additional. Okay, so that is the upgrade action, and there we go. Now, the next action is how we are going to get the scientists. You must spend, in order to take this action, one scientist on your color, and he will stay there until you relieve him of that spot. It's a little bit tricky to do so, which I'll talk about in a second. Then you decide which of these do you want to get, okay? You pay the fee. In this case, if I wanted to get the green scientist, I would pay the fee of, the two food or foliage or whatever they are. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Vegetation. Or if I want to do this, I put, 2 guys into my workshop. I take the scientist card. I put it over here in my area. And now I have access to this scientist for the rest of the game. He is my scientist. This also lets me have a bonus that I will get 3 points for every upgraded building that is an upgraded mine, okay, at the end. So that's how you do an end game bonus there. Each of these is unique. Each of them gives you upgrades for different things. So this is for the shelters, this is for the air purifiers, etc., etc. So each of those, it's once you have it, that it's your scientist, no one else can claim it. Then what you're going to do is you are going to choose one of these cards in this private contract deck. You can look through them however you want. I'm just going to take the top one off the top here. And you're going to place this card out for anyone to get later on. So that card goes right there. All right. And when you do that, someone later can take this action again later, spend 1 crystal, and take this. Now, the private contracts are a little bit different. I'll just explain them quickly. Basically, you have to fulfill the condition, which you should look up in the reference guide. Once you fulfill the condition at the end of the game, you'll get that bonus. If you fail to fill the condition, you will lose points. So you're going to need to figure out which one you want, which one makes sense, and then do it appropriately at some point in the game after you collect the private contract. So I told you, well, this gets locked down. The only way to get this guy out is actually when you get this bonus, taking this action right here. This action allows you to remove your man from this spot, put him back in the space on your work shelf. And again, the only way to get this is to build a structure that is still not part of the requirements of the LSS. Okay, so that's how that works. And once you do that, you can unlock them and you can take that action again. And that's really key for getting more contracts and more scientists. Okay, finally, this action right here lets you move both your bot and your rover 2 spaces. Remember I told you that you're going to be moving your bot around to be able to construct different things. You can go ahead and do that. The bot, if it moves over crystals, will destroy them. The bot can also not stand in the same spot, or end their turn in the same spot as another wooden piece. So that would be an illegal move. They have to be on their own by themselves. They can end their turn on one of these tiles. It's no big deal. But they cannot do it on one of the wooden pieces. The rover is going to drive around the map, okay? Any crystal that the rover drives over is put into your supply. The weird thing is in this game, when you gain crystals, they go over here. They're not actually in your supply until the end of your turn. At the end of your turn, you're going to move any crystals that you have in this storage area up into your permanent storage, where you can then spend them for executive actions or for other things that require crystals. But you cannot spend them on the same turn that you get them. Now, the reason you want to move the rover around is because not only do you get crystals in that way, but you'll also be able to claim some of these tiles. These tiles, regardless of the color, are all the same. They basically let you do 2 research actions with these tiles for free. See how it shows the check, pardon me, if I can get it to focus. Come on, you. All right, the checkbox, that means that you don't have to pay the resource to do that. Now, the only rule is you can't take 2 Ds or 2 Cs or 2 As. You can only take one of each of the 4 coordinates, but you can get them as much as you want. So you're going to have to, instead of rolling over the crystals and getting them like you do with the crystals, you actually have to finish your turn with a rover on one of those. Also, the rover is how you are going to get these tiles, which you're going to place on the board throughout the game, when I'll talk about it at the end here when I talk about the shuttle action. Those are going to be placed on the board, and the same thing, if your rover ever lands on one of those tiles that are, let's say they're out here, okay, and you end up driving over it, you stop on it, you get the tile. And then when you get the tile, you do whatever it says, and you got to look up the rules in that reference guide to see what it does, because there's a lot of them. The rovers and the bots always start on the center mine space. If you get additional bots in this game, and you can, which I'll talk to you about in just a second, they also start there. You only have one rover, so once he moves off there, then away he goes. Okay, so that is the action right here. And when you pay a crystal, you can pay 1 crystal per additional movement space that you want either or those vehicles to take. Okay. All right, last primary action is welcoming new colonists. To do that, you don't have to pay any of these. You just could enhance this action if you wanted by paying extra workers, like usual, to the shop. You have to go ahead and come up with one of the green and one of the blue resource tokens, and then you move one of these over here. It doesn't matter which one you move. You can choose. And the reason you want to choose is because it's going to unlock for you an additional executive action, which we'll talk about in just a minute. When you put this over here, you either choose to welcome 2 more workers to your colonists or to your colony, or a worker and another bot. You put another bot out there, you put them in the center, you put a worker out there, you need to be able to put them in one of these spots over here. You get more of these spots by building shelters. Okay, another building you can build. They unlock additional spots and will help you to unlock more bonus opportunities more scoring opportunities for the end of the game. And so that is what happens when you welcome the colonists there. At the end of the game, you're going to get 3 points for every space shuttle or little rocket, whatever you want to call it, personal shuttle that you have in this spot. So it's a good way to score a decent amount of points. You're going to use these on any turn to be able to take a free shuttle action without having to be on the same side of the shuttle. And we're going to talk about the shuttle actions right now. So every turn, you're going to take a turn, the AI is going to take a turn in turn order, and the turn order is from left to right on these. Once you've taken your turn, you then will, and you also get an executive action, which I'll talk about just a second after I explain this. Then the shuttle's going to move. If the shuttle is on space 3, it's going to move to 2. If it's on 2, it's going to move to 1. If it's on 1, it's going to give you the opportunity to travel with it and take these actions along the way. And then, after you travel with it, you're going to choose one of these open spaces to decide what bonus you're going to get. Okay? when you travel over this, you're going to choose from this side or this side, take one of these tiles, and you're going to put it 3 spaces away from your rover. Okay, so let's say my rover was here. I have to put it 3 spaces away, 1, 2, 3, from where it is right now. Okay, it can be anywhere, but it's got to be 3 spaces away. It also has to be on an empty space. The AI will always take this spot. The AI will also always travel unless it has a card that shows one of these little X's, which we'll get to here when we talk about the AI. Let me just show you. Okay, so if you see an X, he will not travel on that turn. If you don't see an X, if you see a little arrow, you can plan on him doing a travel. Okay, so the other thing you do is you will retrieve all of your workers, in this case, from the colony actions, and they may be up here, so you might have a couple of workers that are out on these spots right here. You would then retrieve them all, put them back, ready to go in that spot, and you'll retrieve any workers that you have in your workshop and put them over here, okay? All right, so that is very helpful, and that's why traveling is really important, because that's really the only way you're going to get your workers back to work. Then you get to choose one of these spots for a bonus. In this spot, there is no bonus. You're just going to go first in the turn order when you get to these type of actions. Here lets you take 1 free resource or resupply action from the warehouse. This will let you move for free 2 spots with your bot, or pay additional crystals to move further. And this will let you choose one of these upgrade cards like usual. Going in the other direction, if the shuttle is already here and it's going to go ahead and move backwards, you're going to do a little bit different. First and foremost, you're going to gain resources for each upgrade building that you have on the board and each player worker token you have on the mines. So in this case, I don't have any workers, but I do have this guy, so I would gain 1 crystal. If this upgrade building was on, let's say, a water, I'd gain a water. If I had a person on one of these mines that I built, I would go ahead and I would gain a resource or a mineral on the mine. And so that is what happens here. It's one of the ways that you're going to get additional goods. And then any of your workers that are in this space over here or over here will then come back to your living quarters, and you will also move anybody who's in the workshop over to the board over there. And so, again, very important. That's what happens here. You get more resources, you get your guys back, then you get to choose which one you want to take. Again, going first, this lets you take a free resupply. This lets you pay to take one of these. And this lets you go ahead and pay either 1 water or 1 vegetation to add 1 worker from your pool over here to your living quarters. Again, you have to have room for them, and you see the room is the little indents here. This is a great way to get extra workers if you can have the resources to pay for it. And so that is what happens with the shuttle resupply. Now, if the shuttle is on the wrong side, let's say he's over here, and you're over here, and you want to get across, that's what these guys are for. You can discard him out of the game. You'll be losing 3 points, but then you can move your person for free to any of these 1 spots that you want. Also, like I talked to you about, this action lets you move out of turn, so that way you can get across to the other side regardless of where the shuttle is. Might be important if the shuttle is many spaces down and you need to just get over there and start taking your turns. So that's kind of complex, but that's how the shuttle movement works. Okay, now let's talk about executive actions. So you have a primary action every single turn. You also can take up to 1 executive action. You could take it before your primary or after your primary action. What are the different ones you can take? In the beginning of the game, you can always take these 3. What that means is spend 2 crystals or use the appropriate scientist to take 1 available action that's on one of your upgrade bonus cards or upgrade cards that you've already played. So in this case, 2 crystals is self-explanatory, but if you have the colored scientist, you can go ahead and put it on that card and take that action, okay? That also works for an upgrade card that maybe the opponent has. So if you decide, let's say this is in the opponent's spot, not mine, I don't own this, but I do own the scientist, I can move my scientist there, making that action free. Now, also, if that scientist is the opponent's scientist, you can use this action for free even if it isn't your scientist. So once the scientist is on there, it's basically like a free open executive action you can use at any time to do what it says. And what does it say? It says, in this case, go ahead and place a shelter tile down like usual, and you can spend guys to do so. Again, you have to pay all the costs, you have to do all the stuff, but this lets you just take this action to place a shelter on the board without having to use that as your primary action. And all of these are they're varied, right? Each of these different ones is going to have all sorts of different actions that you can take, but they can only be taken once that building has been built and once the card is empty. All right, so that's the 2 crystals. You can also pay 2 crystals to get a resupply action. You could pay 2 crystals to move your bot and pay additional crystals to give him 1 additional movement point per spot. You could pay, now these all have to be unlocked. So in order for them to be unlocked, you've had to previously move your your rocket from, or one of the shuttles here. It can either be here, it can be spent, it doesn't matter, but it needs to have this spot unlocked. Once that's the case, you can spend 3 to get a mineral, 3 to do an upgrade action, 3 to take an upgrade card, 3 to move your rover to, or 4 to move your rover to, or additionally add more crystals to continue it going, and then 4 to do an upgrade one time. One time in any of the spots there or there, and it's free. And I should have pointed this out, but if you're moving one of these tiles, it has to move to the tile next to it. It can't go like from here to there, okay? Now that's only a ×1, so it's a little bit different than most of these that have the ×2 on them. All right, so those are all the different executive actions that you can take throughout the game, and check out the rules for any more. Okay, so let's talk about a couple more odds and ends. Once the LSS gets everything it needs, once all the buildings have been built, doesn't matter by who, at the end of that turn, this is going to move to the next spot. When it moves to the next spot, you're going to activate whatever it says in these different spots. So this one will say, okay, when you're moving up, I take that back. These icons are important, but you do it a little bit differently. So when you're moving up, it actually reveals whatever is down here for the move. So it's not when you move over it, it's what it reveals. So in this case, you're going to do a scoring for however many different cubes you have. You count up the number of cubes that you have down there, and then you get that many points. Then from that point on, the shuttle will move it will always go to the second space when it crosses over. So that means that it'll take one more turn before making the journey back over. Okay, when it gets upgraded again, when all these things are in this spot, it's going to move up here, and you're going to do all of these things. So now the shuttle is going to be on the third turn. Additionally, you are going to move this one space over, effectively shortening the game, and you're going to score again on these. When it moves again, now the shuttle doesn't move at all, okay? So the shuttle is finished moving, and you're at this point where you don't score these spots. You will shorten the game again. And then over here, in the final spot, the game will end no matter what. You always go right to the end of the game. And you'll get one, actually I gotta look that up. Okay, so yeah, the shuttle will travel one more time instantly, back or forth across, and then the game will end. So that is how this works. Also, the first time this goes to this spot, right? I'm sorry. The first time it goes up, you are going to do what it says here. So you're going to, when it's on the LSS is level 2, you are going to discard all of the cards that are down there, and then you're going to refill it with 6 new blue cards and then 6 red cards. Okay. Then you're going to discard all the cards that are left there and refill it with the rest of the deck when it comes to level 3s. I didn't talk about level 3s, but they're similar, except they're just a little better. They still give you the same kind of situation here. They require that to upgrade. They now score 5 points, but they have to be in a spot that's at least 3 size or larger from a complex standpoint to be actually upgraded to. So that's a little bit different. The level 1s, it can be a complex of just 1. Here, complex of at least 3 or more. Okay, and so that is the situation with the LSS. Now, how does this game even end? Every time you fulfill one of these 3 missions that were dealt in the beginning, you are going to move this little cube over one spot, and you're going to get 1 or 2 crystals. And whatever these mean, it depends on what you're doing in the game. In this case, this is, whoever upgrades a building, you're going to move it over, okay? And this is for a 2-player, a 3-player, and a 4-player game. That's how that goes as far as how far it has to go. Once this goes all the way over, no longer will you get a crystal for doing that, and you're going to slide this box 1 space over. When the box slides to this final spot, okay, either through those missions or through the LSS moving up, then you are going to, once it's done with that turn phase where everyone's going to take their action and executive action, you're then going to go through these final steps for endgame scoring, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Okay, so you finally got to the end of the game, and your brain isn't fried, but it's tiring, and you're ready to score. Okay, so first thing you do is you are going to, again, score for however many cubes you put out in that spot. Depending on the number of cubes, gets how many points. All right. Then you're going to score 3 points per ship that you have here. Okay. And I'm going to talk about the AI scoring at the end, but I'll mention that every time they have one of these rockets move over here, it stays there for the rest of the game. So they don't use these rockets. They'll just score the 3 points. Then you are going to score, take all of your workers back from the board, wherever they are, and put them into your home area. All right. And they are going to then score depending on what is the kind of highest level they've reached. So in this case, I have one guy in that second level. It's going to be worth 6 points. So I get 6 points for having people score. Okay. Then over here, we're going to score for technology tiles. I look at where my technology tiles are, and I score this number of points depending on where they are. Then I'm going to take a look at all my upgrades and decide and see, did I actually build the building? If I did, I'll get the plus points. If I didn't, I lose points. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the contracts. So if I don't have any contracts, you ignore it. But if I do have a contract, hopefully I met the conditions, so I get the positive points. If not, I lose the points like that. And that's also, and then I do the contracts after. The first one is actually the scientists. So the scientists, for every scientist card I have, I take a look and see how many upgraded buildings are there on the board that, in this case, correspond to the mine. And then I would get 3 points for each of those. Doesn't matter if they're mine or not. I'm just looking out there for upgrades, okay? And in this case, I've got nothing that's been upgraded that way, so I don't have anything. So that's what you have for all the different scoring slots there. The person with the most points wins. There's many tiebreakers if you have them, and then you got to look at it. And then there's some other scoring things that I'll talk about at the end for the AI opponent that you have to meet from a condition standpoint so that you can actually win. One of the things I forgot to mention is that when you move the LSS up a level, that will be the time that you will restock this supply. Otherwise, it does not restock at all. It's only when the LSS moves up and you do all the steps, you will then restock that. In a multiplayer game, you'd also work on some of these things, but again, I'm not explaining that. I'm just doing the 2 players so you can figure out how to play against the AI bot. Okay, let's talk about the AI bot. So the AI is going to work from these cards, okay? And you're going to shuffle these cards up at the beginning. And then what you're going to do is you're going to reveal one. Now, you're always going to ignore whatever's in the top here until you've already gone through this deck the entire time. What this shows is the number action that it's going to take, okay, depending on where it is, orbit or colonize. It will always take the actions on the colonize starting from here down here. So 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's these 4 actions. It never takes this action, okay? So if it says it's a 1, it takes this, 2, 3, and 4. All right, same thing with the colonize. If it's over here, if his pawn is on one of these spots, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, it does not take this action. We'll talk about that in a second. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that is what it shows over here. So as you can see, you're looking at different things it's got. You see the 1, 2s, and 3s. There we go. All right, and I shouldn't have even said 4 because it actually doesn't take the 4th action. It's a little misleading. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, it does have the ability to take these actions, just not through the the game as usual. So 1, 2, and 3. All right, so that's what you've got. Now let's talk about how it takes them. The AI always does the same rules, but never bumps any of the actions. It never has to pay anything from a standpoint of workers, but it does have to pay crystals if it wants to pay the fees for these spots. So what I mean by that is, let's say I have this situation right here, and the AI is going to take this action. All right. If he's going to take that action, he has to have 2 crystals to be able to do it. If he has 2 crystals, great. He doesn't have 2 crystals, so we'll get to that in a second. But let's say he does have 2. He's going to spend 2 crystals. He's going to put his guy over here. He's going to obey just like the regular way it would be for you taking actions. If he was to take this action again, he would remove these guys first, calculate the number of crystals to pay, in this case 1, and then put another one out there, just like the opponent. Okay, but he never has the ability to pay workers, just crystals. Now, let's say for whatever reason, he cannot pay crystals or cannot take the action because it's not valid. In that case, he will do one of the following all the time. Actually, he'll do one thing all the time. He will take his rover and he will move his rover towards the nearest one of these spots or the nearest one of these tokens on the board. He will move 2 spaces unless the upgrade tile, like this, is out there. And if it's out there, he'll move extra ones. And that's a great one to have for you because he'll always use it and he'll always be flushing you with oxygen. So if you can get that one, little strategy tip there, that can definitely help. He will get crystals just like you would, and you got to kind of use your brain about where he's going to go. You need to go the most advantageous place for him. And I can say that in all ambiguity, think about what you would do in his case, take the most advantageous case. Whether that's placing buildings, whether that's moving the rover, whether that's upgrading things, always do what's best for him, and then you'll be in good shape. All right, so let's say he could take the action. In this case, what he will do is he will select the card that corresponds to the current scientist that he may have. If he doesn't have a scientist or there is nothing to correspond to, he'll just take the left card and put it just like you would. He doesn't take any resources because the AI does not use resources. So he just puts it over there into his supply with a building on it, hoping to eventually upgrade to it. If he takes one of these, he will take the cheapest one first and will just basically work his way left to right, bottom to top, and he will place it in one of these spots. Again, you put it in the spot where it makes the most sense for him. So getting a crystal makes the most sense. Then covering this, if he goes here, he will take a crystal if he can. If not, he will discard the leftmost resource in the most abundant supply. So if, let's say, these guys weren't here and there were no crystals, okay, he would take this resource and he would discard it. Finally, if he's going to take this action right here, he's going to research the tile that is the most ahead and the one that's the most behind. So the farthest front, furthest back, he doesn't pay any of the costs. Those are all the different orbital actions that he could do. Let's talk about the colonized actions now. Okay, the colonized actions are pretty simple. In this case, I lie. They're not simple. Nothing's simple in this game. In this case, he's going to place a tile on the board just like you would, okay? He's going to put one on there depending on what his bot says he's going to build next. So in this case, he's going to build, all right, let's see. So this is how it works. If these are down here, he's going to look, let's say it looks like this. He's going to look to the right of where his guy is, okay? And he is going to build that building if the LSS needs him to build it, all right? I'm sorry, he's not going to look to the right. He's going to build whatever's above. So the first thing he's going to do is try to build a mine, okay? Then after he builds, he will always move this over. Then he's going to build what the LSS needs. In this case, since it needs a battery, he will build the battery. He will get the points. He won't get any bonuses from here, but he will take these bonuses, crystal, or he will use it to remove his guy from here if he's placed it previously, okay? So that's kind of the way that works with regards to moving these and building these. He will also put down whatever he, built on that track just like anybody else, and that's how he will populate it. And just like anything else, if he fulfills a condition in this game from one of the missions, he will go ahead and mark that off just like you would, okay? So that is how the building works. Upgrade is just like you would. He's going to upgrade the one that makes the most sense, the one that would score for his scientists, if possible. and he can only upgrade when he has cards. If he doesn't have the card for it, then he's going to move his rover like usual. Over here, he's going to take the scientist that would score him the most points depending on whichever upgrade cards are out right now that are corresponding to whichever scientist. So let's say there's 3 of these cards out here. He's going to want to take this scientist from the pool, take it over, and just like you would, you want to score as much as you possibly can. So he's going to look and see which cards are out there that are corresponding to the scientist that's most popular. Then what he will do is he will shuffle these, randomly take one out, put it in the stack that replaces it. Okay. He doesn't actually take this action directly. We talked about it. He only takes this action to move his rover when he can't take any other action. And he never takes this action. What happens is, during the movement, the upgrade of the LSS, when that moves up, he's going to move one of his shuttles from this spot over here, okay? And he's going to then take another rover. He's just going to put that rover on his board. It's important because, like this spot, for instance, he would get 2 crystals for doing that, and it would advance the game, and the rover just kind of sits there, okay? Whenever he moves the rover in the game for whatever reason, whether it's a bonus action over here or something over here, he's always going to move it one time just over to the next space, okay? And then, so that at the end of the game, he's still going to score for however many shuttles that he has moved over. The other thing he's going to do is that he builds a shelter for free every time the LSS moves up there. So you'll notice that there's no way for him to build, any of the shelters over here. These buildings all have to do with, the primary buildings out here. So he's going to build these shelters one at a time, like usual. And he doesn't have to follow any of the rules as far as because he doesn't have a bot out here. He's going to build it wherever he wants, as long as he can maintain the usual tactile situation with the complex. If he can't, he has to put it 2 spaces away from an existing tile, just like normal. Okay, so that is all of the different actions that he's going to take. He never takes executive actions, and you use all these to choose 1, 2, or 3. And again, if his pawn is over here in the orbital side, 1, 2, or 3. If his pawn is over here on the colonized side, 1, 2, or 3. Sorry about the ambiguity earlier. He will also take bonuses, which you can look up over here, but they're pretty obvious when he does it, okay? The only thing he doesn't do in this case, he doesn't take that because he never takes colonists. So he's just going to get a free crystal. All right, and the rest of it is pretty obvious or makes sense for what he's going to do. Whenever he does end up taking anything from the warehouse, again, if it's crystal, he stores it. If not, he just discards it. And so those are the specific things for the AI. Now, once you've gone through his deck once, and again, I want to mention this, he always travels. Okay, when he has this symbol right here, he does not travel if you have an X. Okay, also, how do you figure out where he goes with the different bonus spots? Okay, you got to randomize that. So you can basically pick one of the cards, but that only gives you 1, 2, or 3. So your better bet is to roll a dice or do something else to show where he's actually going to go. I usually roll a die to show where he's going to be, 1, 2, 3, or 4. That'll help me figure that out. Finally, after you have shuffled these and you've run out of these cards, from there on in, every time he takes a turn, he's going to advance the red cube on this condition 1 space. So in this case, it'd be condition B. You go over here. It doesn't matter that he didn't actually do it. You're going to advance it 1 space. So it just kind of moves the game along. Okay, next time it'd be condition C, next time B. And he takes his turn like normal, but that moves things further along to hasten the game to completion. He scores just like you do in every way, but the challenge part of it is that at the end of the game, in order to beat him, you remember we have to accomplish some of these solo goals. So go ahead and look through these to figure out which one you're going to be able to do, because you always have to beat his score, but you also have to fulfill some conditions to do it. All right, so that is how to play on Mars against the solo AI. I really hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm not perfect. Maybe I make mistakes. If I do, I'll do my best to update the comment section. But as far as I'm concerned, this is how to play this game. It's a beefy one. Good luck, everybody. And again, my name is John LaRuffa, and this was a rule speed through. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to this video on YouTube. It really helps me out. And like it if you enjoyed it. All right, take care, everybody. Happy gaming.